We're going to be talking about diabetes, right? And the current medical literature says there is no cure for diabetes, but that's false, right? And there's plenty of documented cases of people reversing their diabetes. Never like to use the word cure. Usually they say in remission because it can come back, but anything can come back, right? You know, if you don't take a shower, your dirt comes back, right? But if you if you realize what's causing your diabetes and stop doing that, it'll go away most of the time. But yeah, of course it can come back. Anything can come back if you abuse your body. But we're going to be talking about how to restore your health. Because typically when you have diabetes, if you don't do anything about it, you know, you just get worse and worse, and you get sicker and sicker and sicker. All right. So we're going to start with, we're going to go run through this kind of fast and slow down if people want, but I think this is probably something that at least diabetics have learned ad nauseum, right? What is type 1? What is type 2? So type 1 diabetes, otherwise known as insulin-dependent diabetes, used to be called juvenile diabetes because type 2 diabetes was adult onset. But recently, because of dietary habits, people are getting type 2 diabetes at younger and younger ages, that we're seeing it in children now. So they've gotten away from calling type 1 diabetes juvenile diabetes and type 2 adult onset. Now it's just insulin dependent and non-insulin dependent. So type 1 usually starts in childhood and adolescence, and it's there's some cells in your pancreas called your beta cells, which produce insulin, and those are the cells that get damaged, usually by an autoimmune reaction. Now it's believed that at least we see high incidence of babies that have been introduced to dairy, cow's milk, at an early age will have a much higher risk of diabetes. So we'll see why correcting diabetes, you might want to stay away from dairy products. All right, and then type 2 is not insulin dependent, right? Typically affects adults. It increases dramatically with age. Obesity also plays a huge factor. It's a combination of chronic resistance of the biological action of insulin and the body's inability of the pancreas to produce enough insulin. So we kind of have either an either-or scenario or a combination of. And about 90% of people with diabetes have type 2. Now, there's a couple other ones that we're not going to really touch on because they're not really appropriate for this lecture. There's gestational diabetes, which happens during pregnancy. Alzheimer's disease is kind of called type 3 diabetes because there's current research that's strongly hints that Alzheimer's disease is a sugar handling problem, or at least starts that way. And then there's also something called diabetes insipidus, which is a disorder of water metabolism that results from a deficiency of the hormone vasopressin. Okay, so it doesn't really have any relationship to diabetes mellitus, even though they both have the name diabetes. It's really a whole separate category. So this is a little chart to kind of give you an idea of what happens, right? When you ingest food, right, you eat something. What happens is we're going to start over here, right? The blood glucose level rises, right? You eat something and digest it. Now the pancreas will start to release insulin from those beta cells that we talked about. And it'll either go one of two ways. It'll get stored in the liver, which we're going to see the liver is going to become a huge player as we go on this journey. It'll get stored in the liver as glucagon, as glycogen, I'm sorry. It's glycogen, or it'll get stored in the fat cells, all right? And in the fat cells, that's where the insulin will store it in the fat cells, okay? And then what we have is we get a normal glucose level, right, of about 90 to 100. And as the glucose drops, we're going to come down this way. Glucose drops. What's going to happen is your pancreas is going to release something called glucagon, which is going to liberate that stored glucose, which is stored mostly in the liver and also in the fat cells, but mostly the liver is going to be the main player here. So it's going to release the glucose here, and it goes back into that cycle. So how do we get diabetes? So what actually determines if someone has diabetes? So it has to do with your blood sugar, right? A normal blood sugar level is somewhere around 100 milligrams per deciliter, all right, or 6 millimoles, but we're going to stay with the parentheses one because that's what most people know, that right there. Okay, so that's a fasting blood glucose level. Okay, after a meal, it shouldn't go up much above 156. Okay, an elevated blood glucose level of around 126 fasting or 220 after a meal is indication that you have diabetes. Okay, you can also test the urine if you like, but most people is tested during the blood. So what I'll say about this also is that researchers found that the environment that you're in the womb is extremely important to whether someone is going to be susceptible to diabetes or not. Okay, what foods and stresses and toxins the mother is exposed to will determine the genes that are set for life. And if your mother ate sugar and junk foods and things like that, or deficiency in certain vitamins and minerals, then it's more likely you'll get diabetes. And research has shown that not only the mother, but it'll go far back as even the grandmother. Okay, so it takes 2 generations to repair the damage that was been done during fetal development. So our prognosis, which means what do diabetics have to look forward to? Right? It's the 6th leading cause of death in the world. Right? It's a leading cause of kidney failure. Right? 20 to 50% of all kidney failures are from diabetics. Blindness in adults, about 8.5% of all blindness. Mild to severe nerve damage, and this is what leads to amputations. You get nerve damage, and you get also vascular changes because the fat builds up and you have loss of circulation. And about 60–70% of amputations are all diabetics. Okay, it's also a major risk factor. In heart disease, you're 2 to 4 times more likely to get heart disease than the average person. And heart disease, if those of you were on my last month's webinar, when we were talking about heart disease is the #1 killer in the world. Okay? You're also 2 to 4 times more likely to develop a stroke, which is related to heart disease. Birth defects go up, and diabetics are also 3 to 4 times more likely to develop clinical depression. Okay, and overall, it shortens the average lifespan by about 15 years. Okay, so when we go back to amputations, right, we said that studies have shown that there's 60–70% of all amputated patients will die within 5 years of losing a limb. So once we get to that stage that your diabetes is so out of control that you're losing limbs, your prognosis is very poor. All right, so our risk factors that we are in control of, modified means that we can control them. Okay, obesity, right? Our body fat distribution, more body fat in the midsection where the organs are located, or higher incidence of diabetes. Physical inactivity, and elevated fasting or 2-hour glucose levels, which has to do with our diet. So the 2 basic things are diet and exercise, right? Which seems to be for everything. The same thing for heart disease, diet and exercise. All right, so medical treatment, right? At present time, there's no known medical method to cure or prevent diabetes, and treatments have only limited success in controlling its devastating consequences. Now, when we say that there's no known prevention, right? You could say there's no known prevention for death from cocaine or heroin, right? If you're going to eat and live a toxic lifestyle, yeah, there's never going to be something that you can do to prevent the consequences of that toxic lifestyle. Right? If you're gonna eat sugar all day long, it's gonna take its toll on the body. Just like if you do cocaine all day long, it's gonna take a toll on the body. But we have holistic treatments if we change our lifestyle. Again, you can't just sit there and drink a bottle of vodka every night and say, oh, how come my liver is not functioning properly, right? Where's the treatment for my liver, even though I'm going to keep drinking vodka? Well, it doesn't work that way. But if you want to make a change in your life, yeah, you can turn things around drastically. And with holistic treatments, there's a couple key areas that we're going to look at, right? Our liver, right, which we talked about earlier, is a primary player in blood glucose levels. Your pancreas, of course, and your adrenals play a role, as well as your small intestine and your thyroid. All right, so we talk about the adrenals, right? We're talking about things like epinephrine and norepinephrine and cortisol. Those all are going to affect your blood glucose. All right, so the negative effects that are associated with blood sugar levels, okay? Again, We mentioned a few of these, but let's go over them, right? Heart disease, kidney dysfunction, right? Increased dental plaque. So you're going to get a lot of cavities and things like that because of your breath will have excess sugar in it. Decreased phagocytosis. Phagocytosis means eating away at pathogens in the body. Increased blood cholesterol, which leads to the heart disease. Okay, increased platelet stickiness, okay, and increased cellular oxidation, which again, if you were on last month's lecture, you know cellular oxidation is one of the 4 key ingredients for heart disease. Okay, the others being sugar, inflammation, and what's the third one, fourth one? Escape my mind at the moment, but it'll come to me. Peripheral vascular disease, diabetic retinopathy, which is our vision. Okay, nerve damage, which leads to the amputations. Okay, impotency, diseases of the intestines, like leaky gut, things like that. Constipation, diarrhea, stomach problems, bladder incontinence. You know, the list goes on and on. So signs and symptoms of our diabetes, what to look for, right? You're going to see irritability, fatigue, excess thirst, okay? Frequent urination, it's real common, okay? Because the body can't retain it and hold the water, okay? Poor healing, skin wounds, blurred vision, vaginal infections, infertility or low sex drive, okay? And then it's a big one, polycystic ovarian syndrome, okay? Will lead to sugar imbalance problems. High blood pressure, heart disease, which we talked about, sugar cravings because the body can't regulate the sugar. So you're going to have these yo-yo up and down effects, and an inability to lose weight. So we have two basic symptoms, right? We have hypoglycemia and hyperglycemia. So with hypoglycemia, we're going to see excessive sweating, shaking, dizziness, paleness, hunger, abrupt mood changes, jerky movements, seizures, and tingling sensation of the mouth. Okay, we also see brain fog and things like that, right? Because the brain's not getting enough glucose and not enough energy to work. Then with hyperglycemia, again, we're going to see an increased thirst. We'll get headaches, trouble concentrating, okay, blurred vision, okay, frequency in urination, fatigue, vaginal skin infections, slow healing of wounds, nerve damage, okay, causing painful cold or insensitivity to feet, loss of hair in the lower extremities, okay, erectile dysfunction, stomach and intestinal problems such as constipation and diarrhea, and damage to the eyes, blood vessels, and the kidneys. Okay, you also get into an emergency state. Hyperglycemia, believe it or not, is a much more dangerous state than hypoglycemia. Okay, you can lead to something called ketoacidosis, which is an emergency situation. Okay, it's characterized by shortness of breath, nausea, vomiting, and you get a fruity smell on the breath and very dry mouth. You'll also notice a very dark colored urine, which is hyperosmolar, hyperglycemic, ketotic syndrome, which develops as a result of the removal of excess amounts of sugar through the urine. Okay, it leads to an excess of urination and thirst, warm, dry skin, extreme thirst, high fever, weakness on one side of the body, hallucinations, loss of vision, sleeplessness also will be a sign. Okay, and the usually blood glucose is quite high, over 600 milliliters per deciliter. So insulin, what does insulin do? Okay, insulin is, it causes inflammation, right? It also increases foam cells. Now foam cells will do what's called phagocytosis, right? They'll surround pathogens and dissolve them and eat away at them. Okay? They'll also form fibrous plaque formation. Okay? Advanced lesions increase storage of belly fat. They raise triglycerides and the lower HDLs, which are the quote unquote good cholesterol, even though there's no such thing as good cholesterol and bad cholesterol, because without LDL, you'd be dead. So there's really no such thing as good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. Well, what I'll say is the HDL is more hardy cholesterol, because the LDL is more prone to getting things like free radical damage. Okay. Also, raised blood pressure lowers testosterone in men and contributes to infertility in women. Okay. Increased appetite, and it blocks leptin. Leptin is a hormone that tells you you're full. Okay. So with insulin goes up, you don't know you're full and you just overeat. It's one of the causes of gaining weight. It also stimulates the pleasure centers in the brain, which causes you to crave more sugar, right? Acts like a drug almost. Okay, so we can get insulin toxicity. Higher insulin doses create more insulin resistance, right? It's kind of like your body's way of protecting itself from glucotoxicity. Okay, at the time of being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, usually diabetics will have 10 times more insulin in their body than normal, which can be a problem because, you know, high level of insulin in the blood promotes the production of something called insulin-like growth factor. And insulin-like growth factor is a special chemical that's responsible for the growth of muscles and other tissues. So we have to understand that higher IGF levels can cause, you know, abnormal growth of things like cancer, right? Because you have this IGF in the body, which is help you grow tissues, and then you combine that with heightened sugar because you know, the cancer cells, they multiply very quickly, so they need a rapid source of energy, which is sugar, and you're setting yourself up for cancer. Okay, there was a couple of studies that I just wanted to briefly touch on. One was called the Golden Year Cohort Study, and that study looked at A1C levels. Now, A1C is an indication of inflammation. Okay, and so what they found was that nobody out of the 400 people that they had in the study had normal A1C levels. Every single person was above 7.0. Okay, inflammation is a primary cause. Okay, then the Quebec cardiovascular study, they found that hyperinsulinemia is a primary risk factor for heart disease. Right, so too much insulin in the body is very toxic. Right, we see with diabetics, usually they start taking insulin and then they take more, they take more, and they take more because they're trying to get their blood sugar down, thinking, unfortunately incorrectly, that the problem is lack of insulin, right? The insulin's not doing its job. Well, we'll see later that that's not really the cause, but now all of a sudden you get all this insulin flowing through the body, which is very damaging, okay? Insulin toxicity can also lead to things like polycystic ovary syndrome, erectile dysfunction, obviously weight gain, right? Too much insulin promotes fat storage, right? And it stops your body from breaking down fat. So you're going to gain more weight. You're going to get high blood pressure as well as insomnia. Okay, so we talked about that high level of insulin will cause inflammation. Now, one thing to remember about inflammation is in a short term, it can be protective, okay? But in the long term, chronic inflammation is very damaging. So this inflammation is throughout the entire body. So it's kind of like the weak link is the one that's going to break down. It's going to be the kidneys, it's going to be the liver, it's going to be the pancreas. We don't know, right? It depends on your genetic makeup. But somewhere along that line, due to your genetics and due to other environmental factors, something's going to break down because you have body-wide inflammation. Okay, so this is a little chart that we see that increased insulin exposure leads to higher risk of death, or all-cause mortality. It means death doesn't matter what the means are. It could be car accident, but still, the more insulin we get exposed to, the higher the death rates are. Okay, so one thing I should mention, probably should apologize. My computer kind of crashed a little bit, so I had to redo these slides, which is why they're all white and not pretty, because we kind of got them all jumbled up. Crashed halfway through putting this together, so they're a little bit jumbled. But let's just talk about it as they come. Right. So we have high fructose corn syrup, right, which we're going to be discussing later. Right. High fructose corn syrup is we see a lot as replacing sugar. Now, high fructose corn syrup does not act like sugar, as high fructose corn syrup gets absorbed directly into the body through the intestines, which we don't see that with actual sugar, right? So we don't get that same feedback control on appetite regulation, which means that you're going to eat more and more and more of stuff that has high fructose corn syrup as opposed to something that has sugar. Now, don't think for a minute that the makers of your favorite food products don't know this. They know this. What are their jobs? Their job is to sell you more of their product. So they put high fructose corn syrup in there so that your body doesn't know that it's full and you're going to want to eat more and more of it. Okay, it leads to blocking of the appetite control hormone, leptin, that we talked about earlier, and often contains mercury. Now, mercury is a heavy metal, and it's a neurotoxin. So if you're eating any foods that contain high fructose corn syrup, odds are that you have high levels of mercury heavy metals. Okay, it can also lead to something called leaky gut, right? Which, if we do next month, our digestive issues, we'll tackle that. But leaky gut, basically what that comes down to is in your intestines, you have these little junctions of cells that link together, right? And they link together, and they create a barrier between your intestines and your body. And they require energy. Now, high fructose corn syrup, when you ingest it, it uses up a lot of that energy. And so now there's those tight junctions, they loosen, right? And they create little holes, which allows undigested proteins and high fructose corn syrup to get into the bloodstream, which then creates things like allergies and inflammation in the body. All right, so I would highly suggest you stay away from anything that contains high fructose corn syrup. So let's talk about how to get rid of our diabetes, okay? And we're gonna touch on a couple different ways to do it. When I was doing my research on this, I came across a couple different methods that has a lot of documented cases of success, right? But there are three key factors that we wanna look at, right? Number one is what you eat, right? Number two is how you eat, right? And number three is the quality of the foods that you eat. The quantity of the foods you eat. So those are the things that we're going to look at and see what we can do there to reverse our diabetes. So first thing we want to avoid, obviously, sugar, right? This is probably not telling you anything that you don't know, but these include the following, right? Sweeteners, right? Fruit juices, soft drinks. I can't tell you how many people just are drinking their calories. Now, even something like orange juice, right? It's just loaded with sugar. You'd have to eat like 8 oranges to take the same amount of vitamin C that you get in a glass of orange juice. So dried fruit, honey, all right? Now, honey is good for you, but as far as from a diabetic standpoint, it is no better than sugar. Okay, anything with the word diet in it, usually what they do is they take out the fat and they replace it with high fructose corn syrup. Or some other type of sugar to make it taste better. Preservatives or highly processed foods, you can avoid those as well. Right? All flour products, which include breakfast cereals, oats, breads, and other grains, basically anything that has gluten in it. Okay, all yeast products, margarine shorteners, some brands of commercial polyunsaturated oils, such as canola, corn, soybean, and sunflower. Now, these oils contain omega-6 fatty acid. If we remember from our weight loss webinar, omega-6 fatty acids are pro-inflammatory. They create something called arachidonic acid, which is highly inflammatory in the body. What you want to do is you want more omega-3s and less omega-6. Omega-3s are EPA and DHA, which are anti-inflammatory, okay? And then you want to also avoid fried foods. And unfortunately, this is the one that sticks with a lot of people. We are going to be cutting out all animal products, all animal meats, at least for the time being. Fish, poultry, red meat, pork, things like that. All right. Just for a while, you can probably go back to them in limited amounts after we get you back stable. But for the moment, we're just going to cut them out. All right, so this is a long list, and I'm not going to read every single one of them, okay? Anybody who wants these notes, just so you know, just drop me an email. My contact information will be at the end. There's many ways you can get in touch with me. You can get in touch with me on Facebook. You can get in touch with me through my website. My email is going to be at the end. Any way you want to get in touch with me, I'll send you out the notes so you'll have them. All right, but you can see all the different ways that they can kind of hide sugar in there. So be careful and read labels, okay? I have a basic rule, if you want to just make it as simple as possible. Only eat things God made. That's pretty much as easy as it gets, right? If it comes in a box, it had to be processed, right? God didn't make it, You know, vegetables God made, fruits God made. All right, now animals God made too, but we're going to cut those out at the moment. But you want to stay away from anything that's been manufactured. Okay, other things to avoid. So chlorine and fluoride, those are what's called halogens, right? Which means that they will wreak havoc on your thyroid. Okay, so you want to stay away from anything chlorinated or fluorinated, like fluorinated water or toothpaste, right? Because your thyroid is going to play a role in your sugar handling issues. Tobacco, alcohol, and drugs. And cosmetics will also be endocrine disruptors. So I would highly encourage anybody, if there's any females watching this, right, to go on the Environmental Working Group's website, and you can see the link right there. It's Skin Deep, ewg.org, Skin Deep, and you can just type in whatever makeup that you use, and they'll give you a breakdown of its toxicity load. Because a lot, especially cosmetics, there's a lot that they do not have to disclose that is in their product. And a lot of that stuff is actually hazardous, but the FDA, in their infinite wisdom, doesn't feel like it needs to be disclosed. You also want to restrict soy products. Okay, so restrict soy products because they're high in enzyme inhibitors, right, and other nutrients that's going to prevent insulin from doing its job. Okay, and restaurant food because you have no quality control of what's going on and how they're cooking it as far as the oils or where they're doing it. Okay, you also want to restrict dairy. Okay, now for those of you that like dairy, I just posted this week an article on why you should stay away from dairy. It's a pretty decent article on the dangers of dairy. So if you are a dairy lover, you should definitely read that article. It's on my website at drscottjahn.com, and it'll explain why dairy is definitely not a health food, and it'll cause all kinds of things from bone mineral loss, to cancer. All right, so stay away from dairy. Dairy causes inflammation in the body, causes allergies, congestion, postnasal drip, causes sinus problems, eczema, asthma, acne, irritable bowel, right? The list just is a laundry list of things that it causes, okay? Because it spikes the insulin levels, right? It's also been linked to type 1 diabetes, as we mentioned earlier, especially the earlier children get exposed to dairy, the higher likelihood that they'll get type 1 diabetes. Okay, so milk consumption is directly associated with juvenile diabetes, right? There's more than 100 antigens. Antigens just means foreign stuff that can cause problems to the body, right? Cause more than 100 antigens found in milk, right? And that's because it's unclean, they abuse the animals, and there's just all kinds of pus and fecal matter and things like that in the milk. So, stay away from it. There's plenty of options, right? There's soy, there's almond, there's hemp milk, there's rice milk. There's so many options that you can choose that you'll be more than happy with. One thing I'll say about that is everybody does the same thing. First time they switch, they say they hate something, right? But it takes about 21 days for your taste buds to get accustomed to something. Case in point, if you ever went from whole milk to skim, right? You try skim milk, first time it tastes like water. Right? After a month or two of drinking skim milk, you try to drink whole milk again, and it tastes like a milkshake, right? So just be patient with it, but you'll find something that you'll be able to live with. Okay. Okay, gluten, as we mentioned earlier, right? So gluten, unfortunately, gluten's not unfortunately, we'll get to the unfortunate in a minute, but so gluten is a protein that's found in wheat. Right now, 50 years ago, the type of gluten was very different than we have today. Right, we have created new strains, like more hardier strains, but which means that the gluten goes up, right? Which is problematic because our bodies were not meant to handle this much gluten. Okay, so there's a 400% increase in celiac disease since I think the past 1960 something or other is when it started dramatically going up. Right, so it's a wise idea to stay away from gluten. It's also going to spike anything that gluten's in is going to spike your blood sugar, right? Even if gluten wasn't an issue. Gluten will also cause problems with thyroid. because gluten is closely related to the T3 molecule, which is a molecule that the thyroid produces. Now, as gluten gets into the system, right, your body mistakenly thinks T3 is gluten, and it'll start attacking it. So if anybody who's got a thyroid issue should definitely avoid gluten altogether. Okay. So let's talk about intermittent fasting. Now, this was fascinating because I wasn't even going to include this, but I found it so credible that I thought I'd put it in. And there was a doctor named Dr. Kerry Reams, and he cured thousands of people of their diabetes, okay, both type 1 and type 2. And all he did was very simple. He just put people on a 3-week lemon juice fast. So 3 weeks, all they had was lemon water. Right, and what they had was 9 parts of water to 1 part of lemon juice, and they drank it every hour, or at least 10 times a day, but every hour, because you have enough fat deposits in your body to sustain you. Now I know everyone thinks like, "What are you crazy? 3 weeks? I can't go 3 weeks without food." But after you get past the second day, your body is smart. Your body's metabolism will get used to it, and it will start going to ketosis and start burning fat instead of the sugars, right, that you're used to. So I don't personally know anybody that's actually done this, but if you can stomach it, it's worth a shot, because, like I said, there were thousands of documented cases of cures just by this one thing alone, right? So in order to use fat deposits as energy, right, you just need citric acid and fatty acid, which will produce energy. So the lemon juice gives you citric acid. Fatty acid is the fat that's stored in your body, and it'll just start coming off, right? So interesting. If anybody actually does this, just drop me a note. I will reward you with some free chiropractic care if anybody does this, and give me some feedback on it, because I'm very interested to hear the results. Okay. So we're going to talk about another way to go, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to start this little routine here. As you get out of bed, you're going to take 10 leaves of holy basil, right, and a small piece of ginger. And what you're going to do is you're going to chew it in your mouth for about 5 minutes, okay? Once you finish chewing, the basil and the ginger, okay, then you're going to drink a little bit of coconut water. Okay, it's a natural mineral water, right? So the juice of the basil and the ginger, once it reaches the intestines, it works as a signaling agent to stimulate and prepare the pancreas for production of insulin. Right? So you must understand that the diabetic patient, specifically the ones who are undergoing a medication, are often deficient in many minerals. So we want to make sure that we're adding our coconut water to that, because coconut water will restore a lot of those minerals that you're deficient in. All right. So once you've done that, okay, then you're going to get ready for breakfast, right? And you're going to have to stay on this depends on how much medication, how long you've been on medication, right? So if the patient is on insulin therapy for less than a year, then you only have to do this for 3 days, 72 hours, okay? Otherwise, if you're going to add 3 days for every year you've been on a medication, right? So if you've been on medication for 10 years, 10 times 3 is 30 days, okay? So for patients who are on medication for more than a year, like I said, withdrawal of medication or insulin should never be done suddenly. Okay, it should be done over a period of time, and it should be done under a doctor's supervision. Okay, so when you're going to follow this nitric oxide diet, make sure you are constantly checking your blood glucose levels, right? Because you'll be surprised of how much your blood glucose levels will drop, and you might fall into that hypoglycemic levels, like we talked about earlier, if you think they're going to be high and you just assume. You want to make sure you're eating the food the same time every day, because you want to get your body acclimated to a routine. All right. Make sure you chew your food properly. Okay. You want to make sure you chew it 2 or 3 times more than you normally would chew that food. All right, because your saliva has digestive enzymes in there that's going to start the process, and we want that to happen as easily as possible. All right, what else? So here's what we're gonna have for breakfast, all right? So you're gonna have 50 milligrams of some kind of a sprout, like a mung bean or something like that. You're gonna have 50 milligrams of coconut, 20 milligrams of almonds. Now they can't be honey roasted almonds or salted almonds, they have to be raw almonds, all right? A large tomato, medium-sized beetroot, 1 green chili, some coriander leaves, right? And some lemon. So you take the beetroot, peel it off, and cut it into bite-sized pieces. You chop up the tomato, the chili, and the coriander, and add the almonds, the sprouts, tomato, beetroot, and chili, and then add some lemon. And that's going to be your breakfast. And what that does is going to help you produce nitric oxide, which improves the health of what's called the endothelial layer. Now, your intestines have a one-cell layer, right, called the endothelial layer, right, which tends to get damaged with diabetics. So we're going to help heal that layer and help repair it. So mid-morning snack about 2 to 3 hours after you eat breakfast. And you want to refill your body with soluble carbohydrates, which you're mostly going to get from fruits. All right, make sure you check your blood sugar. Okay, I'm going to choose one or two type of citrus fruits, about 300 grams. And you want to take it about 20 minutes, or you want to take 20 minutes to consume it. So you want to eat slowly and chew it thoroughly. I'm going to give you a list of fruits that are good for low glycemic index. And then for lunch, 2 large tomatoes, 100 grams of French beans, 2 large capsaicin, and 1 green chili, and lemon, coriander, and 50 milligrams of, chana dal is a type of, what is it, a bean, not a bean, what is it now? It comes to me, man. I think I wrote it down lower. It's kind of, yeah, it's like a bean, like it's a legume, anyway. So you're gonna take a cucumber, peel it, and cut the tomato, cucumber, capsaicin into bite-sized pieces. Okay, you're gonna soak the legume and steam it for about 20 minutes. Okay, and add the vegetables and put it all together, and then eat it with the tomato as a dip. And that's gonna be your lunch. And then your post-lunch evening snack is gonna be similar to the mid-morning snack. Some low glycemic index fruit. Okay, make sure you check your blood sugar again. Okay, also vegetables are also a good snack. Okay, make sure you're getting very colorful vegetables. And then for dinner, you want to consume no later than 8 p.m. because after that, your circadian rhythm will slow your body's metabolism down. Okay, and we don't want that to happen while we have a belly full of food. So you must stop consuming all kinds of nutritional supplements, at least for the 72 hours, and again, longer depending on if you're on some kind of medication or something like that. Any tonics, powders, and I'll say all except prescription medication. If you're on a prescription medication, you have to talk to your medical doctor who put you on that prescription medication, or stay on it until they deem it's safe and appropriate to take you off of it. All right, but any kind of food supplement that you put yourself on, just stop it for the moment. Okay, type 1 and type 2 patients must expose themselves to direct sunlight for at least half an hour. Morning sun is better, okay, but we want to make sure we're getting proper vitamin D. Okay, so you're also going to need to be doing exercise. So this is an excellent time to say, well, I'm going to go for a 30-minute walk. Right? When you're doing exercise, just a brisk walk is all you need. You don't have to go into a run or a jog or anything like that. A brisk 30-minute walk in the morning. Okay, make sure you're wearing clothing that exposes your limbs, like shorts and a tank top, as opposed to sweatpants and a long sleeve shirt, because you want to get sun exposure. Okay, because vitamin D, it inhibits the pancreatic secretions of insulin. Okay. Patients must spend about half an hour or more on some kind of physical exercise, as we already talked about. Okay. Inadequate vitamin D status contributes to disorder compromising syndrome X. So let's get that. All right, this was a little bit smaller than I thought it'd be. Okay, so our top 10 keto foods, veggies, and fruits. These are the things that you are going to be able to consume as snacks, right? They're all very low on the glycemic index. Raspberries, blackberries, strawberries, blueberries, plums, clementines, kiwis, cherries, cantaloupe, and peaches. And on the vegetable side, we have cauliflower, cabbage, okay, avocado, broccoli, zucchini, spinach, asparagus, kale, green beans, and Brussels sprouts. Right now, there's more. Like just Google, keto foods, veggies, and things like that. But you want to stay away from things that spike your blood sugar. Okay, so the other thing that's important is as we come off of our diet, we want to stay away from foods that that we may be allergic to. Now, we don't always know what we're allergic to, right? Because sometimes it's a low-grade allergy. So a good way to test it is by taking your pulse. What you're going to do is you're going to take your pulse before you eat, right? Make sure you do it every time, so you'll have an idea after a few times you take it of where your resting pulse is. You want to sit for a few minutes, but you don't want to do it just as you're running around and just sit down. So after you've been sit quietly for a few minutes, take your pulse. Okay. Once you take your pulse, okay, quickly for those of you who don't know how to take your pulse, right? It's going to be right here. I'm just going to wrap 2 fingers around and put it right here. If that's too difficult or you can't find it, you can also take it right here. Don't press too hard because you can constrict the blood flow to your brain. If again you still can't find it, just put it on your heart, right? Very easy, okay? So for those of us who are mathematically challenged, you can just do it for 6 seconds and add a 0 to whatever number you get. Keep in mind that the shorter time you spend taking your pulse, the larger the margin of error is. So if you can take it for 10 seconds and multiply times 6, right? Do that. If you take it for 30 seconds, that would probably be best, and just multiply by 2. Okay, and then you're going to take it again 30 and 60 minutes after a meal and see how much your pulse rises. If it rises by more than 10%, okay, after things of like eating an apple or something that you know that you're not allergic to and something that's safe, right? Apple, not very many people have an apple allergy, right? But if it rises more than 10% of that, then it's something that you probably want to avoid, at least for the time being, until we can get it under control. And like I said, we're going to be doing a digestive disorder webinar at one point, and we'll teach you how to do that in that webinar. But for now, it's just something you're going to have to avoid because it's causing an inflammatory process in your body. So some herbal supplements that have been known to help with diabetes. One is berberine. Okay, it comes from China and India. It's a natural alkaloid that's found in a wide variety of herbs. Okay, and there's been a lot of studies comparing it, which I've listed in a minute. It's able to control blood sugar as well as Metaformin, which is a popular diabetic drug. And there's the study that was done. It was done in, let's see, I forgot where it was done in. It was done in, I can't remember. I don't know if I can read that. Yeah, I can't read where it was done in. Sorry, but there it is. Hopefully you can read it. Yeah, they don't have it on my notes, but that's the lecture. All right. Other herbs or other things that are going to help with controlling or reversing your diabetes are something called psyllium hulls. Okay, it's a source of fiber, and it's going to help clean out the intestinal tract and get the bowels moving. Right, you'll have about 2 or 3 bowel movements a day with that. Right, so it's going to help with digestion. Fenugreek tends to delay the absorption of food, so we don't get that rise in blood sugar, which is going to spike the insulin release. Okay? And Jerusalem artichoke in small amounts has been beneficial effect on the liver, pancreas, and kidneys. Okay. So again, my slides are a little bit backwards, but let's not talk about your liver, because your liver is your primary place that is going to control your blood sugar, not your pancreas. Your pancreas is just going to respond to it, but your liver is actually the place we want to start. Many people who have diabetes have clogged livers, and so we're going to have to unclog that liver. After you're coming off of your 3-day diet, or longer if you're on some kind of medication, you're going to have to clean out your liver, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a liver flush in a minute, but you're going to add hot castor oil packs to that. And all you do is you have to find a flannel sheet, okay? And you're going to use some organic castor oil. You're going to put it on the flannel sheet. You're going to put it over your liver, which is located on the ribs on the right side. Okay, then on top of that, you just put some plastic wrap, and then put either a heating pad or a hot water bottle on top of that for about 30 minutes. Okay, that's going to help circulation in the liver and help clear out that fatty liver. Okay, so it helps further to take a tablespoon of olive oil at bedtime. It will also stimulate the release of bile and the accumulated toxins that are associated with that. And then you're just going to flush the next morning with either Epsom salt or some kind of drink like that. You can also use things like activated charcoal you can take at night, which will bind the toxins. You can also take something called like chia seed, which will help remove the toxins as well. Okay, we talked already about sunshine that you're going to need, and we also want to decrease our stress levels, because stress is going to release cortisol from the adrenal glands, which is going to fight against our insulin. Okay, so as we're working our diet, we want to try and eat at least 50% of our food, 70% if we can, in raw form. Right? When you cook food, you lose about 50% of the protein and 70 to 80% of the vitamins and minerals. Okay, and about 100% of the phytonutrients. So the more food you can eat raw, the better. Okay, and we talked about exercise as well. All right, now exercise does a whole host of things. Right? This is only just a small list. Okay, if you go to my other webinar on healthy weight loss, okay, you'll see a much more comprehensive list of the things that exercise will do for you. Okay, so it controls cortisol. It improves your insulin sensitivity. Right? It reduces stress hormone, cortisol. It speeds metabolism. It builds muscle, which increases your basal metabolic rate. It improves memory and concentration because it increases circulation. So antidepressant. It reduces the risk of heart attack and stroke, reduces inflammation, boosts detoxification, balances hormones, reduces cancer risk, and improves sexual function. And the reason why it reduces cancer risk is because when you increase circulation, you get a lot of these white cells that just travel through the body and looking for problems, or antigens as they're called, in the body. And the more circulation you have, the more they're going to be able to investigate and find what these antigens are and destroy them. So let's go to our liver now, all right? So the liver will get rid of excess blood glucose, right? And one of the liver's many jobs is to regulate blood sugar, okay? But a fatty liver makes the organ less responsive to insulin and leaves much of the glucose in the blood, which then causes damage and leads to type 2 diabetes. So we wanna make sure that we're cleaning out the liver, or making sure the liver is functioning as much as possible. We showed this slide earlier, right? So here's where the liver comes into play, right? The pancreas is going to send the glucose in blood in one of two places, either in the liver or in the cells. Now, if you have a fatty liver, this area is going to be blocked and it's going to go right into the fat, which also will mean that less blood glucose is going to come out when your body drops into hypoglycemia, and you're not going to get enough blood glucose out, and your body's going to be inefficient at getting the glucose from the fat storage. So, liver detoxification. What we're going to do is the following. Right? I've been doing this for years, and it works like a charm. Everyone I've given it to works wonders for them too. So, if you would like a copy of this, just drop me a note and I'm happy to send it to you. And we can go from there. So prior to this flush, you're gonna drink at least 32 ounces of apple juice per day. Now, apple juice has something called malic acid in that. And the malic acid, what it's gonna do is it's gonna soften any kind of gallstones that are in the gallbladder and the liver, all right? And it's gonna make the passage through your bile duct a lot smoother and easier. So the other problem with apple juice is, though, that you might want to keep a toothbrush with you, because apple juice will tend to leave a little film on your teeth, and throughout the day that can get kind of annoying and damage the enamel. So bring a toothbrush with you wherever you go. All right, you're going to drink the apple juice slowly throughout the day between meals, and avoid drinking juice during, just before, or in the first 2 hours after a meal. Okay. You're also going to make sure you're going to drink 6 to 8 ounces of water. Okay, not everybody should be drinking water, but it's just a reminder that if you're dehydrated, it's going to inhibit the flush. So during the entire week of preparation, you want to make sure you're avoiding foods that are going to be toxic to the liver, or going to be taxing on the liver, damaging the liver. And these would be, things like fried foods, right? Cold foods also, and chilled foods will also cause a little bit of problems on the liver. Okay? Try to avoid foods from animal sources, so try to stay as clean as possible. All right, if you can go vegan during the week prior to your cleanse, that'd be best. I usually, when I do it, and when I recommend for my patients, is I put on a juice fast, right? A 5-day juice fast, which tends to also help bring out toxins and help cleanse the body at the same time. Okay, so on the 6th day, you're going to drink your 32 ounces of apple juice in the morning, and you can eat a light breakfast, but you want to cut out your foods by 12 p.m. Okay, and then you're just going to drink water and fresh juice as you like. All right. Nothing is going to happen after 6:30 p.m. No fluids. Okay, you have to give your stomach time to empty, because when you do the flush, you want to make sure there's no water in there, because the oil will start to float on the top and give you a nausea feeling. Okay, 7 p.m. What you're going to do is you're going to take half a cup of extra virgin olive oil and 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, right? And you're going to drink that, right? Now, it's not as bad as it does. I've done this every year for the past 10, 15 years. It's really not that bad. And you're going to do this every 15 minutes until you consume the entire pint of extra virgin olive oil, okay? As you begin to have bowel movements, which probably won't happen until maybe the next day, all right? You'll notice small gallstones, right? They'll be like little green pea-sized or tan color stones will come out. Try to keep an estimate as to how many stones pass through your flush. The reason why you want to do that is because even if you have 1 stone, it means you need to do it again, all right? You're going to do this probably about once a month until you get no stones twice in a row. So you want to make sure that you're being effective. If you're getting 100 stones on the first time, and the second time you get 50 stones, well, you're making an improvement. So you want to just be able to have a gauge to how well you're doing, okay? But let's get back to drinking in the night. So after you've consumed your entire pint of extra virgin olive oil, what you're going to do immediately is go lie down, all right? You're going to lie down, preferably on your right side, if you can, because you want that fluid to get into the intestines, and just try and stay as still as possible. You don't want to try using any movements or anything like using any energy, okay? Now, 10:30 the next morning, okay, you can drink fresh squeezed fruit juice. A half hour later, you may eat 1 or 2 pieces of fresh fruit. And an hour after that, you can eat a light food. Okay, by the evening of the next morning, you should be back to a normal routine and feel the first signs of improvement. Okay, continue to eat light meals during the following 2 to 3 days. Okay, your liver and gallbladder just gone under a major cleansing, so you want to be a little careful with it. After doing the cleanse, it's a good idea to reestablish proper gut flora, because you just kind of flushed everything out, okay? And you're going to do this with a good probiotic. Now I have a video on my YouTube channel on how to make your own probiotic for almost nothing, very little money. You can buy a probiotic in a store, but there's problems with that that I'm not going to go into here, but just watch that video and it'll teach you how to make your own probiotic, which will be more effective than something you buy in a store and much, much cheaper. Okay. Research suggests that a soil-based probiotic works best for intestinal health, okay, which is fermented foods like kimchi and sauerkraut. All right. As far as things like kombucha, it's not a soil-based, it doesn't really work as well. Okay, even kefir is not quite as good as kimchi or sauerkraut. So some herbs that'll help detoxify the liver. Okay, number one is we want to get what's called glutathione. It's a very simple molecule that's comprised of 3 protein building blocks, which are cysteine, glycine, and glutamine. Okay, and the reason why glutathione is such a powerful detoxifier is that it contains sulfur, okay, which is a sticky adhesive molecule, so it attracts toxins to it. Okay, so and then it flushes out. Now, the number one key to maintaining glutathione in your diet is to eat diets of foods that are rich in sulfur, which include garlic, onions, broccoli, kale, and cabbage. All right. Other things are N-acetylcysteine, milk thistle, all have good research behind them, alpha-lipoic acid, and curcumin, which is found in turmeric. Okay. Omega-3, selenium, folate, B6, B12. And we already mentioned the foods high in sulfur. To rebuild and repair your liver, you want to use green tea, avocado, walnut, turmeric again. Dandelion root is for constipation. Then artichoke leaf, ginger, clove, cinnamon, burdock root, horsetail, parsley, and juniper berries. All right, I'm going to leave that list up for just a minute. And like I said, I know a couple of people just jumped on. If you want these notes, just drop me an email and I'll be happy to send them to you. And that pretty much concludes our lecture, right? We came in right about an hour, which we were trying to get. I left some things out because, like I said, I had to redo this lecture because my PowerPoint kind of crashed. So if you're not already part of my Facebook crowd, think about joining, because I'm going to add a lot of stuff that we weren't able to get to in this lecture or just didn't have the slides for, which they'll be coming up and I'll put them on Facebook or on YouTube. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this and got some use out of it. And like I said, vote on next month's topic, either thyroid or digestive health. And hopefully I will see you there. All right. Thank you for your time. And I'll see you guys again next month. Take care.